Hey guys, my name's Lee and I'm the camera operator for the TV and Netflix series Adolescence. I hope you enjoy learning all about how we made the show and also the world of film and TV. So you've all sent me a couple of questions and I'm going to do my best to answer them. So question number one is, did you ever get emotional while operating the camera? Operating's quite a personal thing because you're so close to the actors, and so while they're performing, you're really seeing the performance firsthand. So yeah, it can be really emotional, especially when somebody's putting their all into that, whether it's they're sad or angry or happy or even just feeling nothing. You're so close to them that you can really feel their energy, which, you know, impacts you when you're shooting. So the next question is, what can you tell us about the camera approach in relation to the shot length, lens choices, and the angle of the shots? Did you have a clear idea from the start, or did you have to find a code as you went along? Okay, so to answer the first question, so the shot length is obviously decided by how long the script is. So a lot of the shots varied from, I think it's 45 minutes to an hour and 5. But yes, you will shoot based on how long the performance takes, and sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, and each take was so different. But yeah, and then lens wise, we used a 32mm Cooke SP3, I think is what it's called. So yeah, Cooke lens, very small, but it was really nice to work with. And then the second part of the question, I think that we learnt a lot as we went along. We didn't know entirely how we wanted to shoot it and what the rules were, but as we went along, we realised certain things that we wanted to keep in mind. Some of those main things being, we didn't want the audience to notice the camera too much. We wanted to make sure that all the movements were motivated and made sense, and we wanted to make sure that the story was put first. We didn't want any super fancy camera shots because it would just distract you from their performances. So it was always focusing on the story first and then ways we could shoot it. Question number 3 is, what was it like working together with grips? Tell us about the relationship and the importance of mutual collaboration. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how important it is to work with the team around you and to feel like you have the support of your grips. But also you're working with the sound department and the video department and the actors. But specifically with the grips, you know, their job is to make sure that I get around safely and they support me in whatever way that is, whether that is when I'm holding it or whether it's on a piece of equipment like a crane or a drone or something. So having that trust and being able to talk to your grip and make sure that they understand where you're moving, how fast, what you need help with is very important. And I would say before you've even picked up the camera, you should be talking to your grip and making sure that you both know what's about to happen, and if anything goes wrong, what we can do to make it better or to make it safe. The next question is, how do you think this camera approach impacted the actors' performances? Now, because we shot this in one continuous take, I think that the big factors that were presented was that the actors got tired over the week, and so did we. I think that, you know, that exhaustion from shooting for an hour twice a day was pretty difficult for them. However, something that was really good is that they could live the whole experience from the beginning to the end, and they didn't need to just start when it's really emotional or start when they're meant to feel really sad or whatever not. They had time to build up through the episode. So especially episode 4, where Stephen Graham at the end is crying, he's had the whole episode to build up to that. And I think that's a really good thing about this format, is that actors can treat it like theatre rather than just treating it in bitty sections. So next question. It says, what was the working dynamic of the camera crew, and in particular the focus puller? I think, if I understand this question, so we had two main camera operators. We had a focus puller, a variable ND puller. We also had two trainees in the camera team. So overall there were 6 of us. And what that meant was there was a lot of communication that needed to happen before the takes, and a lot of understanding between all of us of how the take was going to go. So my boss, who was our cinematographer, Matthew Lewis, he was also the other operator. And he would decide on the shots and how we were going to shoot it, and he would speak to me about that, and also our focus puller, Sean Beasley. And between us, we would practice each scene and each moment, and then build it all into one. And yeah, it was just a lot of practice with us all of us just walking through, talking through it. But eventually we got to a point where we all understood what we needed to do and where we needed to be, so that when we started shooting, we didn't have to say anything to each other, because we knew where we were going to be. Okay, so next question. Tell us how rehearsals worked for you. Did any scenes change drastically after those rehearsals? So for each episode we would have 3 weeks. In week 1 it was actors rehearsal, week 2 was tech rehearsal with camera and sound and lighting, and then week 3 was the filming week. So if anything was going to change, it would be in those first 2 weeks. In week 1, sometimes they would add more lines in the script, or take away lines, or slightly shift around the order of everything, to make sure that the actors were happy, and also anytime we were going from one place to another, there was enough conversation within that journey time. And then week 2 was more making sure that the camera could fit into the rooms and make sure that we could capture the scene the way we wanted to. So sometimes we'd have to change certain things, but generally speaking, a lot of the massive changes had already happened. Week 2 was more about, can we shoot the whole scene, and do we need to move somebody slightly because of the lighting or whatever not. But I would say there weren't any drastic changes, except from in episode 2 where we added the drone landing in the car park, which is pretty crazy. But besides that, we didn't have any crazy changes, and a lot had been done in preparation. But things always develop, things change, and you've got to be prepared for that change. But hopefully you've done enough preparation and practice before that when it comes to the final rehearsals and the rehearsal weeks, you're just changing tiny things. But as I said, keep an open mind, because something might change that's drastic, and you've got to be able to cope with that. So this next question is, what was the most technically challenging moment for you? For me, in episode 4, when the camera is on the front of the van, I'm controlling the camera from a different vehicle on a set of master wheels, which is a remote control setup, so that I can pan the camera but not be holding onto it. And so during that drive where they go from their house to Wainwright's, I'm controlling the camera to make sure that it's always looking at the family. But unfortunately, the camera would drift or wouldn't stay still, so I had to keep on correcting it to make sure that we could always see the family for that journey, which was very difficult, but it was a good challenge. So that was the hardest thing for me. But I think as a team, it was making sure that everybody knew where they needed to be, at what time, what cues needed to be made, so that everything just worked perfectly. I think that was the biggest challenge for us as a whole. But yeah, I'd say episode 4 with the van section. Yeah. Okay, so at what point did you realise they were doing a great job? So it's difficult because there's always challenges. There's always another challenge and something like that. But sometimes you've just got to step back and realise that you've done a good job and you are doing a good job, even if it's difficult. I think we really realized that we were doing something really good when we finished episode 1. Not even when we finished episode 1. Once we'd got through episode 1 in its entirety with little to no mistakes. Sorry. Yeah, I think by that point we knew we were onto something good, and it was just about making it even better and trying to just keep that mindset, and collaborate with everybody and make sure that everybody was heard and seen. This next question is, if you had the opportunity to do a remake, what would you choose to change, or would you choose to change anything? I think if we were to do it again, I don't think we'd change a huge amount, but I think we would really think about what serves the story best. I think there are sections where we could have maybe done better, and thought more about what we were trying to say. But it's always a difficult one because you don't have a lot of time, and sometimes it really takes you taking a step back and realizing it's such a big thing that you're making, and to try and nitpick every tiny section is very difficult. But I think it's always good to aim to improve, and that's why as filmmakers I don't think you're ever super happy with the end result. There's always more you want to do, and always something that you wish you could have done. But I think, yeah, from one side I'm super happy, I'm really happy we did it, and the other side I do think that there are things we would change, but it wouldn't be what it is now if we were to do that. So yeah. So the next question is, do you consider this to have been one of the most important challenges in your life so far? And I would say yes. This project has been a massive change in my career in terms of scale and, you know, the size of the crew, the people I'm working with, how important the project was and is. Before this job, I worked a lot in commercials and music videos, so I'd never really done anything this scale. And so what that meant was I was having to learn as I was going along, and I think that's what made me a better operator, and develop my skills as an operator. But there's going to be more challenges, and that's the exciting thing, that you know, you never stop learning. Next question is, would you film with this working dynamic again? Definitely. In fact, I'm working with a lot of the same crew on a different project, because the team was so nice. Everyone was very caring, everyone was very supportive, which is super important. And even if we were to do another one take, I would love to do that with the same people, because everyone was really passionate and cared about the project and cared about everyone else around them. And I think that's the best place you can be, and the best environment you can be in when you're shooting a film or a series or anything. So yeah, I would definitely do it again. Second to last question is, do you personally think this series changed you in any way? Yes, in short, I think it has. I think I've become more thoughtful about what I'm shooting and why I'm doing stuff. I always say that motivation is really important with camera, because if there's no reason to move, or there's no reason to shoot something, then you shouldn't be doing it. You know, if somebody stands up and walks out the room, there's a reason to follow them. But if they're sat still, why would the camera start moving? And if there's a reason, then that's great. But if there's no reason or motivation, then you need to think why. And I really think about that now, since filming Adolescence. Everything is more specific, and I'm trying to think more about what effect will it have on the audience, and how does it best serve the story. So yeah, I think it has changed me in many ways. So yeah, the final question. So I see that you are at film school located in Patagonia, Argentina. So it says, what advice would you give to the students just starting out in the world of film and TV? So I don't know what the film industry is like where you are, but what I do know is that to tell a story is the easiest thing, because we all do it. We all tell stories. We all want to explain experiences in our lives. So my most basic tip or advice for getting into the film industry and just being in that world is make your own stories. You know, if you have a phone or a camera or just anything, start telling stories, because you don't need thousands of pounds, or you don't need loads of money to make something. And sometimes the best things are made with no money. Adolescence was quite cheap compared to a lot of Hollywood things, but it's broke so many records with people watching it and loving it, and compared to Hollywood films, it's very cheap. So my biggest advice is, if you have a story to tell, go and do it. And eventually you'll be able to tell that same story with more money, more people, bigger budgets. But that doesn't stop you from telling your story. And I'm sure that there is a lot of interesting and thought-provoking things that you have to tell. So I hope that this helps, and I hope that you do create these stories, and I'd love to see them, because every story is worth telling. It just takes the right person to tell it. So I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for all these questions. I hope you've kind of got a bit of an insight, and I'm open to more questions or more in-depth answers if you want that. But I hope you enjoy watching Adolescence, and thank you again.